Good morning, guys. Hi, Somnath. Hi, Pulak. Good morning. So it's 6 o'clock. We can start the session. I don't know how to make the comments full screen. How do I do this? Okay, I can see quite a lot of people have joined. Ambi, Sandeep. Uh, so let's start with this session now. I'll just pick up the questions that Manoj and Manish have compiled for me to address in this session. Okay. Question number one is advantages of cycling. Fitness, cardio, the same advantages that you will get when you run or you do an activity like swimming. The advantages of cycling over running is simple. It's less stressful on the body. So if you are a newcomer and you want to get into running, going about by starting cycling is a better way to do if you are not in a physical if you're not physically fit to get into running right away. You can do a lot of cycling that can give you the good amount of cardio but will not be too much of pressure on your knees, on your bones, and on your heart as well, because whenever you go cycling, you have an option of slowing down, and the same goes with running, but again the impact of running is much more compared to the impact of cycling. So again, the advantages of cycling is that it's less impactful on your body. When you get into a good amount of fitness and you get into good amount of cycling, then the advantage over running is that you can explore more places. You can go out of your boundaries and go as many kilometers as you want, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the nature, come back. So okay, that's about running. When it comes to cycling for beginners, when you are a beginner, the first of all you need to know whether you can cycle or not, because balancing is something that most of us learn as children because we are exposed to a cycle when we are a kid. So balancing is something very basic that you need to know for beginners when you want to learn cycling. If you don't know balancing, it is going to be a bit tougher for you to get into cycling. So the basic need of cycling is that you need to at least know how to balance. Then when you get into cycling, the first thing you need to do is see the amount of confidence that you have when you are cycling on the road. There are three types of cycles. Now everyone knows this. Most common cycles are the MTBs, then you get the hybrid cycles, and then you get the road cycles. The MTBs have the fattest of tires, and the hybrids are in between, and then the road cycles have the smallest of tires. So when you get into cycling, the more, if you do not know balancing, if you're learning to cycle, the first thing you need to do is you need to get the fattest of tire, which will help you balance your cycle on the road. If you're learning to cycle, or if you're learning how to balance, you need the fattest of tires. So what a newcomer will generally do is go to a cycle shop and get a local cycle which has got a big good fat tire on it, learn to balance on it, and within say a week you learn how to balance on the cycle. But then what, after you've learned to balance and you want to now ride faster, you are not able to do that because of the fat tires, you're getting a lot of resistance from the road. So ultimately you're going to put a lot of pressure on your knee and your muscles to try to go faster on the road, and that's when you will start damaging your knee and your muscles as well. You will not enjoy the cycling phase because you want to go faster, and in the process of trying to go faster, you're going to be dreading that you bought a cycle with a fat tire. If you're a beginner, I would suggest lend a cycle from someone only to learn how to balance if you do not know how to balance. So this discussion right now only for people who do not know to balance. Lend a cycle from someone, learn how to balance on a fatter cycle, and then buy a cycle which is going to actually which you will actually require for your needs. People who are already knowing to how to balance, getting a fat tire cycle has its own advantages. If you're going to get an MTB, you're going to do a lot of off-roading, you're going to see a lot of mountains and climbs. You're not really going to enjoy the road, but yes, there are many people who ride the MTB on the road as well, but you will be slower than a road cyclist and a hybrid cyclist. So if you're fine with that, great. If you're going to improve yourself enough so that you can compete with the road cyclist and hybrid cyclist, great. But otherwise, generally the MTB cycles are much slower and you will be left behind. So if you want to ride in a group, or if you want to socialize with your friends on a recovery ride, then I would suggest to not go for an MTB cycle, because it's going to really slow you down and you're really going to get bored if you're cycling alone. Now I would like to show you all my cycle. So this is my cycle which I'm using for the road right now. This has a very thin tire. This is only 32 mm. Sorry, it's only 23 mm. So it's 2.3 centimeters. The tire is very thin. Then you get a bigger tire which is 25 mm. And in road cycles, 23 mm to 25 mm are the tires which are generally used. These are very thin, so they are much faster on the road. But to avoid punctures on such thin tires, you need to put the pressure very high. My tire takes 110 psi of pressure. If you want to compare in a scooty or in a bike, you're going to use only 30 psi, 30 to 32 psi, and this is 3 times the pressure inside the tire which I am going to be putting in a road bike. So what happens is, it is very hard, and every kind of unevenness or irregularity on the road, you're going to feel the vibration in your hands and in your legs, in your shoulders. There's going to be a lot of vibration that comes into your body, and you're going to get tired and fatigued. When you are going on to very good roads, it is going to be very fast, but if you're going to go on bad roads, you're going to feel the pain of riding a road cycle. The 25 mm tires are the maximum that you can put in a road cycle. 28 may or may not go depending on the type of geometry of your cycle. So once you finish with road cycling, the next comes the hybrid cycling. In hybrid cycling, the tires range from 28 mm, that is 2.8 centimeters, all the way to 35 mm or 38 mm, which is almost 3.84 centimeter tires. So because of the thicker tires, the tire itself takes up all the vibrations on the road, so you will not feel the vibrations as much, but the thicker tires will cause resistance and you're going to be slower than a road cyclist. When it comes to MTBs, again, MTBs are much thicker in length, the tires are much thicker, so it's going to be like almost 5 centimeters to 6 centimeter tires. They are going to be very thick. The pressure that you put in an MTB tire is very less. It's almost in the 60 psi range, just double of your scooty or bike pressure. So it's going to be very bouncy, and because of the bounciness of the tires, you're not going to get the vibration in your hands and in your shoulders. so it's much comfortable to ride on a road using a MTB cycle. The only downfall is that because it is so bouncy, you're going to catch onto the road and you're going to be cycling, so your resistance increase much more than a road cycle or a hybrid cycle, and which causes a very slow speeds on an MTB cycle. Now this what I've been discussing about the type of cycle that you're going to be set is also it depends on what you require. So right now I'm just going to giving all this information what you'll require to buy a cycle. But again, always before buying a cycle, just call an expert or somebody who knows cycling like me. Always call me, tell me that what are your requirements again, and we will try to find the best cycle that is going to suit your needs. There are a lot of variations that come in cycles. One is the size of your cycle. Even if you have decided to go for a road cycle, you know how to balance, you want to go longer distances, you want to enjoy faster speeds with your friends, you have decided to go for a road cycle. Again, in the road cycle, just don't go and buy any cycle which you can see in the shop just because it is color or the cost. Usually, let me come to size first. Size is very important when you buy a cycle. Professional cyclists like me will spend up to 20,000 or 15,000 only to get an international bike fit done for your body, so that when we go at very high speeds, we do not get the pain and the stiffness in the body because of riding at high speeds. Why I say high speeds is when you're going to cycle slow, it really will not matter if you're going to do around 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers a day. Your knee will not really show you the pain, and the body will not really be fatigued by the kind of cycle that you're using or the size. But when you try to go to longer distance, more than 150 kilometers or even 100 kilometers, and you're in a very wrong size compared to what your body is, then you will have a lot of problems with knee issues, back issues, neck issues. You will just not be enjoying. Even though you bought a road cycle or you bought a hybrid cycle that is going to be faster, you're not going to enjoy. Why I say this is, when I purchased this cycle just few days before my BRMs, I thought I will be able to manage it, and I went cycling for the 200 kilometer BRM. By 110 kilometers, my knee started paining. It was swelling up because my seat was too low and I was not able to put the right amount of pressure on my muscles. All the pressure was coming on my ligament, the ligament in the side of the knee, and it was really painful. I could have completed the ride, but not at the risk of getting a longer damage to the knee, which will take a longer time, because then again I have to recover and I have to train for another event. So I tried adjusting the height of the cycle. It did not work, because again, when the next week I did the 300 BRM, I reached Nasik at 150 kilometers, and as soon as I stopped for some time and my body cooled down, again when I started cycling, I had a lot of pain and I had to quit the BRM at Nasik as well, the 300. So the two BRMs that I did at the 200 and the 300, both I quit, because even though the size of my cycle was right, the fitting was not proper. And when you go into higher speeds, or when you're trying to push on the climbs or on the flat roads, you're going to get that response from your body that something is not right, please stop cycling. So first of all, you need to see the size of the cycle, and after even buying a proper size cycle, there are many things that you need to check according to your height. Because when it comes to size, it is only about height, but what happens normally is your inseam is something that is required very much when you're cycling. Inseam is the distance from your groin to your legs. So everyone is not built the same. Some people are proportional upper body, lower body, but some people have longer legs and shorter upper body. Some people have longer upper body and very short legs. What happens in that case is, because of you are considering only your height, you will buy suppose your height is 5'6" or 5'8", you need to buy a small size cycle, not a medium size cycle. But again, if your legs are too long and your upper body is short, it means that your legs are as long as a person who is a 5'10" or a 5'11". So in that case, you need to buy a cycle which is between a medium or a small, and if you do not get a cycle which is between a medium and a small, then you need to adjust the cycle accordingly. You need to increase the seat height much more so that you are going to be able to sit on the cycle properly. So when it comes to buying a cycle, always do your research online about the model that you need, I mean the brand that you need, about the quality and the cost of the cycle that you're ready to pay for. But you also need to check with someone who will be able to tell you properly whether, even if your height is for a small cycle, whether you should buy a small or whether you should buy a small/medium. So this is very important when for longer distance cycling and faster cycling. You will need to check a lot of things like this. So this came to another question that was added: how do you select the cycle size, small to XL or 51 to 58? These are numbers which cycle companies put on them. Most of the cycle companies have centimeters, and then they are generalized into medium, small and large. So most of the cycles start with 44 or 45, which is XXS, which is very small cycles for someone who is going to be in the range of 5 feet. If you're 5 feet or less, if you're 4.5, 4.8, 5 feet, then you need to be buying a cycle which is XXS or XS. Do not go to a shop and buy a small size cycle, because that is the only one available for you. Small may be available in that brand, but there are other brands which will be able to give you a XS cycle or a XXS cycle. This will prevent you from buying a bigger cycle, because because a S cycle will be much bigger for you. You need to buy a XS or a XXS. Similarly, if you're around 5 feet to 5.4 feet, then you need to buy a XS. If you're 5.3 to 5.6, you need to buy a S. If you're 5.6 to 5.8, 510, you need to buy a medium. And then again from 5'10" to 6 feet and 6'2" feet, 6'3" feet, whoever is taller will definitely need to buy a large cycle or a XL cycle. Do not buy a cycle which is not your size. And also, like I said, it is not only about the height, it is about your inseam length. Whoever wants to buy a cycle, we can discuss about inseam length later, and I can give you a perfect requirement of what you need to buy. Again, every company will not be able to give you the same size. Sizings matter. So if you're going to buy a Cannondale, uska excess will be different from a Merida S cycle. So it matters what you want to buy, which company you want to buy, and then accordingly you need to decide. Other question is posture while cycling. The posture while cycling on a road bike like this is, when you are seated on the bike, your hand should not be stretched out completely. If I am on my bike like this, my elbow should have some amount of angle. I should not be stretched out completely like this, which is going to cause pressures on my shoulder and on my neck. So your elbow has to be bent a bit. I need the phone number. Your elbows need to be bent a bit so that there is no pressure on your elbow and on your shoulders. So accordingly, this is called the stem of your cycle. This stem cut distance can be changed. You can buy a different stem. You can get a longer stem or a shorter stem, so that your body, your handle comes closer to your body or farther from your body, so that the angle of your elbow is comfortable enough for you to ride your cycle. Whatever kind of cycle that you are buying, you should not be stuck. Your elbow should not be locked in place. You should see that your elbows are not locked. If your elbows are locked, there's going to be a lot of pressure on your shoulder and your neck. So your elbow should be a bit bent, and then you have to adjust the size of your cycle accordingly, so that there is no pressure on your upper body when you're cycling. This comes about shoulder pain and neck pain. The second is your back pain. When you are cycling, again, how far your handle is from your cycle will depend on how much you are leaning forward and how much fit you are. Leaning forward and backwards is not a problem for someone who is fit. If you have the fitness, you can lean as much as you want, because even in my race cycle I am leaning almost as if I'm sleeping on the cycle. So that kind of fitness you need to develop, so that you do not get back and upper back and lower back pain as well. That is all depending on fitness. Then the third part is your pain in your knees. Again, seat height is going to cause you issues if you're not having a proper seat height. Seat front and back is also, you can even change the distance of your seat in the front and back. So again, if you are not able to change your stem length to get a better fit for your handlebar, you can get your seat front and back, so that you can get a much comfortable ride experience. This all happens, first of all, someone who can do a bike fit for you will be able to do a basic bike fit, and then all comes with experience. You need to be seeing if you're comfortable with that. If you're not comfortable, then again 1 mm 2 mm you need to keep changing, you need to keep increasing, and you see if you're going to get comfortable over a period of time. And if you're not comfortable, again keep changing till you get a perfect fit. So this is something that happens with your bike fit that you need to do. It's not a one-time job. It takes time. Over a period of a month, you change a little bit and you keep riding, and you see if you've got pain. If there is pain, then again change it a little bit more. Front, back, up, down, stem length. All these things matter when you're going to be getting into a perfect fit to get comfortable on a bike. Other questions are safety aspects while cycling. When cycling, you are at most risk, because when you are on the cycle, you have to use the road, you have to share the road with people. People are not going to be really bothered about a cyclist. We have seen many accidents that happen because people have just come very close to a cyclist and brushed them off, touched the cyclist, and the cyclist has fallen down. Safety aspects is, you need to have a helmet first of all. No, do not ride without a helmet, because you might be at a very slow speed, you will not fall down. But if somebody comes and bangs into you and you have a head-on collision onto their car or their truck, a helmet is definitely going to save. So even if you're riding slow, always wear a helmet, because somebody might come and bang into you. Second part is lights. If you have a front light, you can do night riding, but also the front light helps someone who is coming from the wrong side. So you might be riding safely, you might be riding slow, you might be riding on the side of the road, but if you don't have a front light, somebody who is coming from the wrong side might just crash into you. So you need to have a front light which is white in color. You need to have a back light which is red in color. It can either be blinking or a non-blinking light, but a red light at the back will be really helpful for people who do not crash into you from behind. They can see you from very far that there's a cyclist on the road in the dark, and they'll be able to change their lane. Reflective vest we always have to wear during our races. During normal rides, if you're not wearing a reflective vest over your jersey, you can at least wear a band that normally everyone is wearing, even for running right now. Use the reflective band over whatever jersey you're wearing, so that becomes a minimalistic way of getting reflective in the night. And in the daytime, the safety aspects come when you are coming down a flyover. When you are at a full speed going down a flyover, and there's another road which comes onto the which is joining with the flyover. What happens is, on the flyover, you're at the end of the flyover, so you are safe. But as soon as you get down from the flyover, you're in the middle of the road, because there are people from the left who are joining onto the road. So that is very important. You need to keep turning behind. You need to keep checking if there is somebody coming. If there's nobody coming, immediately get down from the flyover and go to the extreme left, so that nobody crashes into you. If you can see somebody coming, then you need to wait, let that person go, and then go to the side of the road. So here what happens is, you need to be really confident. You need to have a lot of road handling skills. You need to keep checking while riding also, because people, what happens, they lose focus when they are cycling and they cannot see here and there. They have to just concentrate on the road, so that becomes very difficult. You need to have the confidence to forget about the road and look in the side if there is somebody coming from the left and joining onto the road. in the daytime, that is one important thing. The other important thing is people coming from the wrong side. Many a times people don't have the mentality to abide by the rules, and they will just ride on the wrong side, and they will not look into you by mistake, and they will crash into you. Always while overtaking, similar like bikes and cars, look before you overtake someone left or the right, because you might not know what's happening. It's like a blind spot. So these are the common things that happens during the day. During the night, again, if you are not visible enough, then you will have issues. If you're not having good lights, then you might just, there might be a pothole in the front of you, and you will not be able to look into that pothole, and you will lose your balance and fall down. So these are something that which is really unavoidable during the night. If there is potholes in the road and you cannot balance yourself, so a bright light is really important. When it comes to, let me just talk about accessories for now. When it comes to lights, most of your lights are categorized in lumens. So a decent light that you will get in a shop is for 200 lumens. 200 lumens will cost you anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500. Decathlon has 200 lumen lights. So this light is one of the most basic light that you will require. You can buy them in chargeable ones or with battery operated. But the higher that you go, you do not get battery operated lights. You need to get into chargeable lights. So there are lights of 400, 800, 1000 lumen. These are really bright for the night, and you need to be investing in lights more than anything when you're buying a cycle. So when you buy a cycle, you need to buy a helmet, you need to buy a front light, a back tail light. These are the basic requirements, and a reflective vest. Other accessories that you need while cycling are like a puncture kit. When I am cycling during a race, I will not, and I get a puncture, I will not be sitting at the side of the road trying to repair a puncture. I will just remove another tire, another tube which I have in the box. This is my cycling box, and it has got my tube in it. I will remove the tire by my hand. I will remove the tube from inside which is punctured. I will replace the tube, and I will fill air into it again, and I will start cycling again. So you will need to carry as an accessory, you need to carry tubes. You need to carry there's a spoon that you need to remove the tire from the wheel. You need to carry that. You need to carry tubes, and you need to carry a pump. So most of it comes into this bike box that I have: tubes and the spoon to remove the tire out. What you require after that is a pump. You can either carry a pump which will help you fill air at the side of the road into your tire if there is no mechanic around with a compressor pump, or you can have something that I have over here. This is a CO2 cartridge. This is a CO2 cartridge. This cost around 140 to 150 rupees. It is one time use and throw. So this has got enough of carbon dioxide in it that can be used for one time tire filling. So instead of carrying a pump, I will carry one CO2 cartridge, and I will fix my new tire into the cycle, and I will then just twist the nozzle over here. This is a nozzle. It has a puncture hole. It punctures the cartridge, and the entire gas from the cartridge at high pressure goes into the tire, and I'm able to cycle back home if I'm not having a pump with me. So this is one accessory that you can buy instead of carrying a pump, but it is better to carry a pump because you can use it as much as you want. You don't have to use and throw this for 150 rupees. So that is one accessory that you need, is a pump for the side of the road. And if there are 3-4 people riding, and if there's only one pump, great. Everyone have to carry a pump. You can share a pump. If anyone gets into a puncture, you can stop, all of you can stop and get into repairing the one cycle. Let me come to cycling parts now. So this is the hood of your cycle. This is the cycle hood, and in my cycle, since this is a road bike, this is the brake as well as the gear changer. So it becomes very convenient to use the brake. If you press it behind, this is the brake. If you kept pressing this, your gear in the front and your gear at the back will keep changing. Both the brake levers have a gear. This is for the front gear and this is for the back gear. So this is your brake as well as your gear changer. So this is the hood of the cycle, and this is the gear changer. After that, you come to the stem. This stem length can be changed as per your comfort level, and you need to change this because the cycle that comes will come with a standard stem of say 80 mm. If you're taller, then you need to put a 100 mm stem, or if you're shorter, you need to put a 60 mm stem, 70 mm stem. So I have changed this stem for my bike fit. After that comes the fork. This fork holds on to your front wheel. Then there are brakes over here which can be replaced. These brake pads have to be replaced after a time when you take your cycle for servicing. Then again the pedal and your front crank with the 2 gears. I have 2 gears in my cycle, and the back wheel with the 10 gears in my back wheel. So that is the components that I have in my cycle. Most of the cycles will have similar components. If you're going to ride a hybrid, you might have 3 gears in the front and you might have lesser gears at the back. If you're riding an MTB, then you're going to have a different set of gears because they require the gears to climb up mountains. So an MTB gears will be much different than a road bike gears, and these gears will then determine what speed you can ride at. No matter how much you try to put power into it, if your gears are not proper, then you'll not be able to go faster. So that is about the type of components that a cycle has. Now when it comes to cycling cost, the most important cost in the cycle is the accessories, is the gear, the derailleurs it is called, the front derailleur, back derailleur, and the shifters, that is the brake with the gear, that's called the shifter. So the quality of component of your the quality of a components will determine your cost. So there are around, if most of the cycles come with Shimano gears, and then there are around 6 to 8 different variations of a Shimano gear. The highest being Dura Ace, then Ultegra, then 105, then Tiagra, Sora, Claris, etc, etc. So I right now have 105 in my cycle, which is at the level 3 of quality. And then if you go lower, you got Tiagra, and then you get Claris and Sora. So what happens with this components is that the quality of your material that they use is going to be much different than the quality in the higher components. Number 1 is the quality, and the number 2 is again experience. When you shift your gear using a lower end of the Shimano components, you will have a lot of noise coming through. You will have a lot of like a jerk when it changes onto gears, and that is the experience. And when I'm using a 105, if I change the gear without even knowing that the gear has changed, it will go on to the next gear. So it comes to experience. Second is component. The components are lighter as you go up the order, and these components help in reducing your entire weight of your cycle and help you go faster. It doesn't really matter for normal newbie cyclist what is the weight of your components and what is the weight of your cycle, because the major weight that you can help is your own weight that you can lose. So you can go much faster by reducing 5 kgs of your own weight than reducing 1 kg of the cycle weight. So it doesn't really matter about the weight of your cycle or the weight of the component. So don't spend extra money just because of the weight that you're going to save. Claris and Sora components of Shimano are equally good when it comes to long lasting life of the components. They will really they'll not really have issues with them for at least 2-3 years. The springs are going to be working fine, so your components are good to go for at least 2-3 years if you take care of them well. When it comes to bike maintenance, after every ride I wash my bike with soap, and I put it out for drying. After drying, I will oil the bike. So when you are putting oil onto your chain, there will be, right now if you can see that the chain is very shiny and there is no much dirt, because I have oiled the chain, I have washed the chain and I put some grease. So this is the grease on my chain. When you start riding the cycle on the road, a lot of dust is going to get collected onto the cycle, and that causes a lot of friction on your chain and your cassette, which is the gears of your cycle, and then it's going to cause wear and tear. So it is always important to wash the chain and remove all the black grease from the chain which has a lot of dirt in it, and put a new fresh coat of oil. Most oil work okay with your cycle. You can even put normal bike oil, or people even say you can put normal oil as well, which is used for your cycle. But what happens with these oils are, they can attract more dirt faster on your cycle. They can wear out from your cycle chain more faster. So you putting a good quality oil is always recommended, because it will stay on the cycle, it will attract less dirt on your cycle, and it will be able to use your cycle smoother for a longer time. So getting again a good quality oil is very important, and periodically maintaining your cycle by going and giving it for servicing is also good enough. You can do it once in or twice a year or thrice a year maintenance. So that is the kind of additional add-on kharcha that comes on your cycle: bike maintenance and oil and tubes. If you're going to be racing a lot, then you'd rather put new tubes than to put a punctured repair tube. I have a lot of puncture repair tubes which I do not use for races. I will use that for normal rides, because again उसमें से leakage होने का chances ज़्यादा है. But for races, then I buy new tubes. So every time I go for a race, my additional cost are of buying new tubes and servicing your cycle before a race. So again, when it comes to your cycle, air pressure also depends on your weight of your cycle. Now let me just talk about the road bike. My cycle can take up to 120 psi. I being 76 kgs, 77 kgs weight, I have to put a higher psi in my cycle. So I put around 110. If you have a road bike, but you are not 75, 78 kgs, you are just 55 or 60 kgs, you can easily put around 80 to 90 psi and get a good ride experience. You don't have to fill the tire with so much of pressure, so that you'll be able to get going on the road. You can put a lower pressure in your same road bike, and you will be able to move smoother and more comfortably. There are many other questions that people asked me about over here, how to shift gears while cycling. I will really not be able to explain it on a video call right now. We can obviously do a one-on-one session with Snails to Bolts at RS, or somewhere we can actually be physically present to see how things work on a cycle. There are many things that cannot be done on a video call, but then we can keep this for the next session, how to change the gears while cycling. The basic thing is, when you're changing a gear, however type of cycle you have, whether it's a button in your hand or the brake that I have, you need to stop pedaling. You need to stop putting pressure on the pedal, but you need to still continue turning the pedal. So that is something I will be able to explain better only when I am physically present in front of a cyclist, to explain how do you change gears without having to cause any issues with damage for the gear or the chain because of over exerting pressure. How to maintain cycles, again we can do it physically. When I'm present in front of you, I can show you all how everything can be opened up, how to open up your cycle, and how to use different tools to maintain your cycle. This has to be done physically. What to do if a chain breaks during a ride? Again, I have a tool which I have in the box. I will not be able to show you all in so much of detail how to open a chain or break a chain and refix a chain. There are tools which I have. Again, along with my tube, I have that tool accessory. This tool helps me to, if your chain breaks during a ride, I can remove a few links from the chain with that tool, and then again fix it and make it into a new chain. I mean, a shorter, it will be one link shorter, but I'll be able to fix the chain and I'll be able to continue riding. These are tools that come along with the cycle. You can buy them at any bike shop or Decathlon, and I will be able to explain to you all online, offline, how to do it exactly and how you can save yourself from the troubles of having a broken chain. How to change tire tube and repair a puncture. Again, similarly, we will do this offline on at RS whenever we can meet, and I'll be doing the session again, which will be much better for you all to see and than to doing it on a live session right now. Important things to carry during a long ride. Like I said, I have this toolbox behind. It has got two tubes, one spoon to remove the tire, and I have my CO2 cartridges that help me fix a puncture. Apart from this, I carry some cash if I have to take a rickshaw and come home by any chance. I carry one debit card. So one debit card and one a small amount of cash I always carry with me on any long ride, because when I'm cycling 100 kilometers, I'm going all the way till Manur, which is 50 kilometers from here, and in that case I will require to carry a debit card and some extra cash. I require to carry my puncture kit, and that's it. I do not really carry food with me while cycling. I carry one water bottle on my cycle because I am now efficient enough to not drink more than 1 liter water for 2 hours. I can manage with not even 1 liter water for 2 hours, because I'm not sweating so much when I'm cycling. If you're going to be sweating a lot in your early stages of cycling, you need a lot of water. So carry one bottle, carry two bottles, and stop everywhere to keep filling water. That's very important. Salt tablets is what we normally use. I carry a tube of Fastenab Reload. I put it along with my water so that when during the day rides, I'm replenishing my salts with the Reload in my water. So yes, a Reload I carry with me, and my puncture kit. That's all, and some cash. I stop at hotels to eat something, so I have cash for that. And then when you're riding on the highways, there's ample enough of hotels. You will not be out of food on the road, because there are hotels everywhere available. So that's about carrying stuff on the cycle. The next question would be specific workouts which are helpful for cycling. How to improve cycling efficiency? What is cadence? Okay, let's get to what is cadence first. When you are running 100 some battery when you are running 180 steps per minute is something that you will keep to, or you will try to maintain for efficiency. Similarly, for cycling, it is 85 to 90 cadence, your revolutions of your pedal per minute. You have sensors that you can purchase if you want to check your cadence. You need to put this magnet on your wheel and on your pedal, and your watch will detect the sensor and you will be able to see your cadence. So when you're cycling, you need to be at a 80 to 90 cadence for maximum efficiency. So when it comes to riding faster, you can obviously keep changing your gears to an extent that you're on the top gear and you're going very fast. But if you're going to be at the top gear and you're going to be having only 50 or 55, 60 cadence, then you're using a lot of your neuromuscular support system. You're not using your cardiovascular. What I mean by that is you're using your muscles more than your heart to cycle at such low cadence. Means you're putting a lot of pressure on the pedal and your muscles are going to get tired faster. So when it comes to cycling, always try to keep the gear easy and try to spin faster. It is going to give you the same amount of speed. You keep it on the top gear with slow cadence, or you keep it in the middle gear with high cadence, your speed is going to be the same. So it doesn't matter how many gears are in your cycle, as long as you can maintain a cadence ratio so that you get the desired speed. First of all, we need, again, when it comes to cycling and training, the same thing applies to cycling as the same as running. Your zones, heart rate zones, power zones. So when it comes to when it comes to cycling, you have another parameter called power. Power is the amount of pressure you can put with your legs into your cycling, and that gives you a number in watts. So I generally use power as a metric to see how I'm cycling, and not heart rate. Power is more accurate than heart rate because heart rate again fluctuates. The same with running as well. Running power, running heart using heart rate is not as accurate as running with power. But since we do not have power meters for running, or it is still at a very costly stage of buying a foot pod which you can attach to your shoe, we use running as with heart rate. Even I use heart rate to run, but since we have cheaper instruments to measure power while cycling, I cycle only with power. So again, power is the same. It has got 7 zones, same like running has 5 zones. And again, active recovery, then you have aerobic zone, you have endurance zone, you have anaerobic zone. So similarly as running, you can use different zones in your cycling to give you maximum efficiency and to improve. When I go for long rides, I am doing active recovery or endurance, where my heart rate doesn't go over 130, 140 BPM, and I'm able to get into a long distance efficiency, aerobic efficiency. When it comes to improving my speed and power on the cycle, the only thing I need to do is improve my speed, improve my cadence, and go faster on the cycle. Go faster and improve my VO2 max capacity. So that's how I improve being a cyclist. Again, that will be managed by a coach or online training plans that help you get faster on the cycle. Specific workouts which are helpful for cycling. When it comes to cycling, just a second please. Specific workouts when it comes to cycling, along with my run training, I do one long ride on the weekend, maybe 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, at a very low zone where I'm not fatiguing my body, and I'm able to again train the next week with my running as well as my cycling. I do one intensity interval training, which I do in the house on my trainer. The last session that I showed you all about trainers, different kind of trainers, and how to use trainers to train indoors. And that's it. I do 2 sessions per week on my cycle. One is the high intensity workout, and one is the long distance at low intensity. So that's what I generally do on my cycle. When it comes to cycling, now the last question I will take up is the cycling events. When you get into cycling, you want to get into long distance cycling, then there are events like BRMs that we usually do. BRMs start from 200, 300, 400, 600 and 1000 kilometers. So these are gradually that you go and do. If you do a 200, if you do any one BRM, you become a randonnier. You get the title of a randonnier. And then if you do those 4 events in one given year, 200, 300, 400 and 600, you become a super randonnier. This is something that Kiran did from our team last month. He became a super randonnier when he did 4 rides in 4 weeks of different distances, 200 to 600 kilometers. So a 200 kilometer event has a cutoff of 13.5 hours, which even Manoj did last month. After that, you get the 300 kilometer event, which is I think 20 hours. And then the 400 kilometer event, which has a cutoff of 27 hours, and the 600 kilometer event, which has a cutoff of 40 hours. So when it comes to the 200 and 300, we do not sleep overnight. We just take rest breaks and lunch breaks and maybe potty breaks. But when it comes to the 400 BRM, it is an overnight event. It takes 27 hours. So we do 200 kilometers, reach the turnaround point. We probably sleep there for 3-4 hours and then return back. Or we do around 300 kilometers, and when it becomes dark in the night, go to sleep for a few hours, 1 to 2 hours, and then finish the remaining 100 kilometers in the next, after you get up from your sleep and you're fresher. When it comes to the 600 kilometer event, it takes 40 hours. So the general thing that we do is we cycle 300 kilometers, which takes around 15 to 18 hours. And by the time you reach 300 kilometers, it is almost night time. So we go stay at the hotel, which is which is given by the organizer. Stay at the hotel for have dinner, stay at the hotel for 2-3 hours, freshen up in the morning, and again leave and do the remaining 300 kilometers. So when you are slower, you'll not get that much of time to finish with to get sleep breaks. So when I first did my BRM 600-kilometer BRM, I was pretty slow, and whatever time I could save was to eat and to refill water. So the first BRM which I did was exactly 40 hours, 39 hours and some minutes. So I did not sleep for 1.5 days. So that's how it is going to be when you start cycling and you do long distances. You're going to not be fast enough and you'll not get time to sleep. But now when it comes to a 600 BRM, I will go faster to the 300-kilometer mark. I will sleep for 5 hours and then again I will get up in the morning. I still have enough buffer time to finish the remaining 300 in time. So you can get enough of sleep if you are improved in your cycling speeds and managing your time off the saddle while eating as well as on the cycle when you are riding faster. So when it comes to events for cycling, this is currently only thing that we have in Mumbai. There are a few events that happen for cycling, like proper race events where you're really fast, but I would not suggest that for beginners. You need to get into cycling slowly, and when you improve with your speed, then you get into races that happen. There are few races that happen in Mumbai. There are many races that happen outside as well in other states. So you can even try your luck at races just for the experience how it goes. It's not like BRMs. In BRMs you're going to be relaxing and riding long distances, but in races it's going to be shorter race at higher speeds. Then there are triathlons that you can do as a cyclist. You need to be knowing how to swim and to run, or you can do a duathlon if you don't know to swim. You can just cycle run in a duathlon. Even that can be an option for a cyclist as a race. You can compete with other cyclists in a duathlon if you don't know to swim, and do a cycle run. The normal duathlon will be around 10 kilometers running, 40 kilometers cycling, and then again 5 kilometers running. So it is a 10-45, and then you need to do this at really high speeds, and you can come at the podium and enjoy yourselves at such events. Apart from this, then there are triathlons that happen abroad, which I have gone for a few. Then there are long distance cycling. So when you're doing BRMs, like how in running you want to do an ultra run and then you gradually graduate up to doing a comrades. So comrades is the mecca for running. Like that we have the PBP and the LEL, which are the ultimate long distance cycling event. The PBP is the Brest Paris, which is 1200 kilometers. You need to complete it in 84 hours, similar to comrades. 84 hours is the cutoff for 1200 kilometers. That happens in Paris, in France. And the other one is the LEL, which is the London to Edinburgh to London, which is 1400 kilometers. That happens once every 4 years. Even the PBP and the LEL happen once every 4 years. So cyclists from all over the world go to this event to compete and to try to finish the long distance of 1200 and 1400 kilometers. So these are the events that usually happen. And as of now, I am into BRM cycling, and as well as I do triathlons. So most of my focus goes into riding long distance for BRMs and doing a little faster distance cycling for triathlons. If any doubts that you have about cycling, obviously you're going to get in touch with me personally, or we can set up a session at RS or somewhere where Snails to Bolts can organize it for you people, and I can show you all the things that you require me to show you all physically, and I'll be able to help you all better. About buying a cycle, again, before you finalize, have a word with me and try to get in touch with a cyclist who will be able to guide you better about how to buy a cycle of your choice within the budget that you have to get a cycle, and which cycle are not good in that budget. I will be able to explain to you all. Do not buy this brand, or do not buy that brand. If you are stuck to a particular budget, say, okay, let me get into this, that a good cycle, a decent good cycle will come for a minimum of 28 to 30,000. If you buy something lower than that, that will be good for just a few kilometers a day. If you're doing around 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers a day, fine, you can buy a cheaper cycle. But as I know, you all are all runners and you are not going to stop at 10 kilometers of cycling. You will need to do at least 40-50 kilometers of cycling if you want to, or 100 kilometers. So in this situation, then the cycles that you are buying which are cheaper than say 25-30,000 is going to really cause you all problems. There are a few cycles which come cheaper than 18,000 as well, but then those are hybrid cycles. You'll not get a road bike for that range, so then you will have to obviously give up on speed for the cost. So if you're buying a 18,000 cycle from Hero Cycles or a Decathlon 18,000 cycle, they are good, but they're not going to be fast enough for you to be doing long distances and BRMs. So there are some drawbacks of buying a cheaper cycle. A few are these: you can't get into longer distances, you can't get into faster riding, or you can't get into something over 10 to 20 kilometers a day. So have a word with me and I will be able to help you all in the best way possible to buy some cycle that you all can use as cross training for your running and recovery, than just buying then you can buy anything you want. All right, it's almost time up now, 1 hour session. Thanks a lot for hearing and hope you'll get in touch with me. Congrats to Sushil, who just purchased his cycle yesterday. NR sir purchased his cycle a week back. Swapnil has a cycle in S2B. Manish has a cycle. Kiran is already an established cyclist. So many of y'all runners will want to get into cycling as cross training, or even try your hand at cycling long distances. So either case, congrats and get into it. Thank you very much. I have 4 minutes, so I can ask. Is there any questions? If anyone wants to ask, I can be able to help. No, that's done. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to this, and hope to see you all for longer rides on the weekend. Yesterday, I and Swapnil went for a 100-kilometer ride, which was his first 100 kilometers, which is a milestone again for a cyclist to finish your first 100 kilometers. I will be there cycling along with you all if you all need to do milestones like this. It's really good to be on the road for 4 hours, 5 hours, enjoy vada pavs and enjoy the scenery. We went to the lake, enjoyed the nature and came back. So it was a good experience. Manoj, you asked about chain braking. I will be able to help you all with a session on chain braking by giving you all an actual demo. We can do this over the next weekend. Whenever Manoj is free, I can show him how to handle a chain brake. But if everyone wants to know about chain brake and other things that we can do while for bike maintenance and how to tackle issues that come with your bike, we'll do a session on the same. All right. Okay, Manoj. Thanks a lot, guys. See you all.